Hi guys, and welcome to another recap video where I'm going to be looking at my round 6 and 7 games. So this was the last day of my tournament, mostly because I couldn't play rounds 8 and 9 because I had a poker tournament to go to, but we did manage to play 7 games and that's already quite long, especially on a 2-game per day schedule. But we'll dive right into round 6. So for round 6, my opponent was around 2281. She was a FIDE master and she was only 15, I believe. And I think she's also been like second in the world or something in a world youth. So I was like, bruh, she is probably pretty good at the game and also pretty like ready to fight. And I was not the most excited to play against her. I've been playing so many kids this entire tournament and they've always been so good, so I was definitely very scared. But, you gotta play against whoever you do play against. So let's go into it. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6. I saw that she plays the Spanish, so I was already like quite happy about it. It's always nice to play against a familiar opening, against somebody who's fairly good at the game. So d3, b5, she plays the d3 Spanish, I guess is what it's called, but it's different from c4, c3, d4. d3 is usually a little bit more solid. So after bishop b3, I play bishop e7, castle, knight to c3, d6, a3, bishop to g4, bishop to e3, queen to d7, she goes h3, and I decide to move my bishop back to e6 because I want to trade off the bishops. And I'm not actually sure if this was the best idea. I do think that at some point I could have played instead bishop to h5 and just kind of kept pressure on this diagonal, because what happened in the game was that I got a little bit passive after bishop e6, knight to d5. I played h6 and c3, knight a5, bishop a2. I'm trying to push c6, but I don't want her to be able to play knight b6, so I have to play rook a to b8. And my position is like getting a little bit passive, unfortunately. My bishops are kind of cramped. I don't have a lot of space in the center. My knight's like on a5. So all in all, a lot of Spanishes end up in positions like this where they're just a little bit more passive or solid or whatever you want to call it, just a little bit more this kind of position. And after b4, knight b7, knight takes f6, bishop takes d4, I was in a little bit of a pickle. Because after queen e7, she gets to play d5. And this completely makes my dark square bishop useless. I am going to be left with a backwards pawn on c7 if I'm not careful with what I play here. For example, if I play b takes c4, bishop takes c4, I'm going to have a pretty bad position with this weak backwards pawn on c7 and also an isolated pawn on a6, and she has the pawn majority on this side, so she's probably going to be able to create a passed pawn really soon. So I wasn't about to play b takes c4 and let her get all of this stuff for free. I decided to play c5, and I actually really like my move c5. I'm already starting getting to slipping into a slightly worse position. So after c5, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, c takes b5, bishop takes b5, rook to e1. I really want to first of all get my knight somewhere a little bit better, because on b7 it doesn't really have anywhere to go. And then after that, I probably want to play d5 at some point and try to untangle my position. So I start off with a knight to d8. After knight d8, she plays queen to d2. I go knight to e6, and after rook e to d1, I play bishop to a4, kicking this rook off of, this Hof-over file where she's attacking d6. And if she plays queen takes d6, I can just play bishop takes d1. So she has to move her rook. She can't take the free pawn. Rook to c1, I want to trade off the rooks. After bishop c4, she's attacking my a6 pawn. I play rook c6 in order to defend. And after bishop d5, I play my rook back because, well, I no longer need to protect this. She decides to go queen d3, which is you know, she keeps hitting my weak pawns, which is exactly what you should do. She's playing like a superb game so far. She's like, oh, you have a weakness on d6? Let me attack it. You have a weakness on a6? Let me attack it. And that's a lot of the time how these games kind of go. So I play bishop b5, defending it. She plays queen to d1, back, play queen d7 in order to stop pawn to a4, because otherwise I don't have a lot of good spots to put my bishop. So after rook takes c8, a4, I play bishop to c4, trading off the bishops. Rook c1, bishop takes, rook takes c8, queen takes c8, queen takes d5. And here I actually thought I was in a bad position. I thought that she was going to just be able to like make a pass pawn, and after that just push it to promotion. I thought way too passively in this spot. I played queen to b8, which is just like super solid move. If she plays b5, I take, and play bishop d8, stopping her from playing b6, you know, just this really like solid, like, I don't want you to be able to promote your passed pawn kind of mentality. However, I think here I had moved like queen c2, and if she plays b5, a takes, pawn takes, for example, I have queen to b1 check, and after king to h2, I actually have knight c7 hitting both the queen and the pawn. And if she plays something like queen takes d6, I can just play knight takes b5 with a tempo, so she doesn't get this e-pawn. And also after that, even, you know, if she takes, I always have like queen takes e4 and stuff like that. And if she plays b5, I take, and she plays queen takes b5, well, I can go queen takes e4, and I have a little bit of compensation with my pawns here, and also I can always play queen a8, knight c7, defending against that. So in general, I would have preferred queen c2 more than what I played. With queen b8, I was entirely like, shoot, I don't want to lose, I don't want to lose, I don't want to lose, but my position wasn't really that bad. Like, I'm a little worse, as you can tell from the eval bar, but I wasn't that much worse. So after queen b8, b5, a takes, bishop to d8, queen c6, queen c7, queen e8 check, king h7, b6, queen b7, queen b5, I am able to actually capture her pawn by playing knight to c5. But in this position, I think I missed knight takes e5, and queen takes b6, queen takes, bishop takes, knight takes f7. This would have been actually a pretty hard endgame to defend, because this pawn's really weak. She's up a pawn. And that's just a hard position to play. It's a hard endgame to defend. I'm probably losing this position. So luckily for me, she doesn't see knight takes e5, but unluckily for me, after bishop takes, d takes, queen takes, I decided to get a little too fancy with myself, and I end up playing queen takes e4. And the reasoning behind this move is that I thought if I play queen takes b6, she's going to play queen takes e5 or something, and, you know, knights and queen with additional additional extra pawn might actually be a little dangerous for me. Obviously, this was unfounded. I should be able to draw this in my sleep, and so should you and your mother. But, you know, I thought if I just took this pawn and I go queen b1 check, and then I take this, what could possibly go wrong? And she plays queen b5, pushing the b7 pawn. I have to go queen b7. And all of a sudden, she has queen to d3 check, forking my king and bishop. And I am completely screwed. I literally just missed this simple move with queen to d3 because I was so confident that there was no like tactics or something in this position. I don't know why, but I missed queen d3, and it felt so bad because I fought the whole game to not be in a losing position. Finally got to a point where I could draw, and I just missed this one move. I just missed this queen d3 idea. And after e4, queen takes d8, e takes f3, I get the knight back, but her passed pawn is just too good. And my queen can't block it because queen and pawn, right? If you take, the pawn takes and promotes. So I tried to go for a draw or something for a perpetual. And g takes f3, queen takes f3, b7, queen d1, king h2. I resign because there's no checks. She's going to promote next move. So yeah, all in all, I think this game was a little bit heartbreaking. I was definitely the most devastated I've been in a while after this game. And I think it's just good practice for me to be more aware, be more like, I wouldn't even say focused, because it's not like I'm not focused, but always be looking for checks, captures, threats, loose pieces, drop off. A lot of these basic ideas that sometimes I stop thinking about, or I stop, really considering, because I'm like, oh, this is just a draw, or like I let my guard down a little bit, and that really lost me the game. So this game was a heartbreaker, but it happens. It really does happen. And she's also really good. She is literally better than me when I was at my peak. So anyways, that's fine. All right, on to round 7. Let's do it. All right, so for round 7, I was playing against a 9-year-old, and he was already 1800 2 years ago. So I was like, bruh, this kid's probably around 2000, maybe even 2100 now. I was like, why is this, my tournament trajectory? I played a 10-year-old in my first game, or maybe it was 11, played like a 15-year-old, 17-year-old, another 15-year-old, and now I'm playing like a 9-year-old. And I was like, I asked for one thing, and it was to not play against kids, because kids are just so good at the game. They have so much time. They're always playing. I was not very happy about this pairing, and I knew it was going to be a tough fight. So let's jump into the game. This was the last game of my tournament. I wanted to win on a good note because I lost the previous game, and I was kind of bummed about it, so I wanted to do well in this one. E4, C5, Knight F3, G6. I had no idea what opening he was playing. I couldn't find his games anywhere, but turns out he plays the Accelerated Dragon. So Knight takes D4, Knight C6, Knight to C3, Bishop G7. I play Bishop to E3, Knight F6, Bishop C4, Castle, Bishop B3, D6, H3, Bishop D7, Castle, and about here it's all theory. So after Rook C8, I play Rook E1, just bring my piece out towards the center. And after Knight E5, I think I make a slight mistake here with Queen to E2. And it's only a mistake because it gives him something to play for. There was no real, he plays Rook takes C3, which is a very, very, very interesting idea. And I was very, very, very impressed that he found it. Also extremely unhappy he found it. Because we go into this position where I am up in exchange, but I am down a pawn, and I have double pawns. This pawn's probably dropping. He has, the pair of bishops after I play Bishop D2, Knight takes D2. So this was a position I really didn't want to play. Instead of Bishop D2, I should have just played C4 and played maybe I can't quite play Rook D1, but kick the knight out and then play Rook D1 and play something along those lines where I keep my pair of bishops, because I think that was really important for the game. So instead of Queen E2, I could have played really anything else. I could have played maybe Queen to D2. I could have played King H1. It's fine. Actually, I like Queen D2 because if Rook takes F3, I can play Queen takes C3, Rook takes C3, Queen takes C3, and then Knight takes E4, I can move my Queen. I think I would have preferred Queen D2. But sadly, I did not, and we go into this position where after Bishop F6, I was trying to maybe create some pressure against the E7 pawn. I don't really have anything to play for. I try to make stuff happen. I try to play F4 and F5. He goes Knight to C6, I play Rook A to D1. After Queen to B6, I go King H1, wanting to get out of this diagonal, and so my knight's not pinned. After Queen C5, I play Queen to D3, Rook C8, Rook to F1, Knight to A5, and then after F5, he plays Knight takes B3. And here I knew I was pretty screwed. So I really don't like my F5 move. I think I should have just played Rook F3 to defend this pawn. One of my things is that I hate being passive as white, especially in the Sicilian, because I'm like, I always want to attack, right? Like, you're playing the Sicilian to attack, not to defend. So I should have played Rook F3 defending this. Sadly, I did not, and I played F5, and this was a terrible mistake because after A takes, Queen takes C3, I am now down 2 pawns for the exchange. And even material-wise, that means he is actually up on material. So this is all just going downhill really, really, really quickly. I could have just played Rook F3, accepted that I have to be passive, and just been like, okay, well, we're here now. We're just going to defend. I really wanted to make something happen with F5, but after F takes G6, he could just play H takes G6. And I have nothing to play for. So I go Rook F2 to defend. Apparently, Queen takes D3, Rook takes D3, A5 was really good for him. Probably to try to play B5 and A4 and create that pass pawn. He plays king g7, I go queen e4, he goes rook h8, trying to potentially sacrifice on h3 with his bishop. So I go rook to f3, after queen to c8, I go rook d to f1, trying to create pressure along the f file. Rook h4. Rook f4 was probably not a very good move, but after queen e3, I didn't really see rook takes d4, rook takes f6. Obviously, he can't play bishop takes d4 because rook takes f7 check is super powerful and he's getting checkmated. But I didn't expect rook f4 to be that bad, honestly. After rook takes f4, queen takes f4, he still can't play e5 because I have queen takes f6, check. So he doesn't get a fork. But I didn't see queen c3 for some reason. And my knight's under attack now. And if I play rook d1, this distracts my rook away from the f file. So now he can play e5 because I can no longer take on f6. And this was the moment when I realized, oh shoot, I am very likely losing this endgame. So after queen takes c2, b4, queen f5, I decided to trade because what else can I really do? I'm trying to play rook to c7, so obviously he defends. I go king g1, bring my king out in this endgame. g4, g5, king e3, knight to d4. After bishop takes d4, I think I had slightly better chances for the draw because pair bishops are really good. Like bishop working with another bishop's really good, right? But he was forced to take. So now I was like, maybe with some suboptimal play from my opponent, I can maybe hold this endgame. So after e5, I go king e3, king e7, king f2 in order to not let him have bishop to g2 at any point, and also because I wanted to push h4. So I go king g3, d5, I push h4, he takes, I take e4, and I move my king back because I'm trying to get my king onto either e3 or d4 in order to not let his passed pawns push any further. So after king e5, I play rook to f1, hitting his f7 pawn. He plays f6, play rook f5 check, king e6, and I go king to f4. My idea is pretty simple. I'm still trying to play king e3 and then king d4. And here he had to play d4 in order to play for the win. I calculated g5, f takes, rook takes, and probably e3. After which I was going to play rook c5, and he can't play d3 because I can just take. And if he plays pawn to e2, I have rook e5 check. So here he has to play king to d6. And my very amazing idea was probably king a5. And then if he goes anywhere, I would probably just go back and try to like hold this position. And I was just going to hope that that worked, really. That's what I was going to do. I was just going to hope that this works and that he doesn't actually have a way to break through. So, you know, I was really happy when he played bishop to e8 because that meant I get to play g5. And after f takes, rook takes, I can just play king to e3 and then play rook g7, king to d4, and then king to c5. And if he plays king a7, he can never ever play b6 or push his pawns up. And I'm basically just holding a fortress by not letting either of his passed pawns push. And that is how we drew the game after repeating moves here. So all in all, I think that was like a pretty good game. Not by me, by my opponent. He played really well. I was just there. He was the main character. I was just cheering him on. So honestly, I think this kid's gonna go places. I don't even feel that bad about losing because he's like severely underrated. After the game, one of the first things he asked me was, how'd you get crushed by Levy? And I was like, yo kid, listen here, buddy. So yeah, this kid is probably going places. He's got a good heart and he's playing good chess. So I'm excited to follow his progress in a couple of years. But yeah, that was the last game of my National Open in Las Vegas, and I'm okay with the result. I didn't do very well. I don't think I did particularly poorly either. Definitely have higher hopes for myself than the Olympiad. So, you know, this was a good warm-up tournament for that. If you guys enjoyed watching this video, make sure you're clicking the like button as well as subscribing and leaving a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you so much for supporting my tournament.